Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with the esteemed Dr. Eric Lopkin, author Eric Lopkin. And anyway, we'll start off on kind of a somewhat lighter note. I probably wouldn't hire this person and Kamala's campaign director. This person, whatever, they had the gay cruise to basically Islamic countries around the world. That's something I'd want to really participate in. And guess what? It didn't go so well, did it? Kind of shoots the whole thing about gays for Palestine, just throwing it out there.
No, it didn't go well at all. Both Turkey and Egypt refused to allow the ship to dock. So they weren't allowed to get off. I'm curious as to what would have happened if they actually had docked. I mean, I think violence would have come about. So
it would not have gone well.
No, they're probably better off that it went this way. But certainly somebody needs to be fired as their travel agent.
Immediately. And again, yeah, you're right. Like, how could you even possibly think of this happening? What are you, nuts? They throw people off of roofs. What are you, crazy?
Yeah, well. This was absolutely ridiculous. You would have thought somebody would have looked at this and went, this is a bad idea. The cruise line should have known this was not going to go well. And yet all of these folks just ignored reality and their vacation cruise fell apart.
You kind of went south. Big news, though, since our last show, it was kind of in process. Graham Platner, your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin? And let me just interject one thing. I think it is funny. I think we said it last show. It's, we didn't know. Yeah, okay. The Nazi tattoo, I think, is good enough. We'll just go from there. Go ahead. Sorry.
That should have been the first thing to eliminate him from contention. I think it was summed up best by Bill Maher, who said, well, who could have seen this coming? Anybody who could see and had a thought process. Mm-hmm. This was so obvious it was going on. And now, of course, the ramifications are hysterical because you've got Democrats scrubbing their social media to get rid
including our esteemed Senator Chris Murphy, a genius, a true intellectual juggernaut.
Yeah, Chris Murphy tried to scrub his social media of any mentions of Platner. I did my part. I actually called him out on social media, tagging him, and got over 5,000 people commenting and viewing, sharing. So there's no way that record's ever going to go away.
Okay, isn't that a little stupid? You told me this back in the terrestrial radio days, that once something's on the net, it's on forever. How dumb or arrogant can he be? You're going to scrub it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this never works. And there was a New York Times reporter that actually, I just saw a video where he was talking about this, where, and I don't remember the politician, I believe one of the squad, suddenly changed her story. Oh, I never said this, And the reporter went, wait a minute, she's been saying this for over a year. Went back to the New York Times archives online, and the article about her had been scrubbed. They pulled it down. But for those of you who have never heard of this, there is a wonderful website called the Wayback Machine
I remember that.
that actively archives the internet. And sure enough, the Wayback Machine still had the article that the New York Times tried to scrub.
Yeah, it's bad. Now let's look at some of the fallout, personal fallout. People like Ro Khanta that we'll talk more about very quickly or later in the show. Bernie Sanders, Pocahontas. Please assess any collateral damage from these shitheads.
Honestly, I don't know that the collateral damage is going to be that bad, because the folks that are voting for them, they were supporting Platner anyway. They don't care that he had a Nazi tattoo, that he was a raving anti-Semite, that he was a misogynist. It was only when evidence came forward that he actually committed rape that they started going, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is too far. So
I actually disagree with the doctor.
Okay.
I don't think it was the rape. I think the rape is, Nazi rapes, the text that he sent about women, they shouldn't, it's their fault for getting raped. I think because he was going down in the polls. I think if he was up in the polls, he would be still rocking and rolling.
Oh, no, I'll agree with that. If he had stayed high in the polls, the Democrats would have turned a blind eye to this.
No question.
But fortunately, the voters didn't. The voters went, wait a minute, enough is enough. This guy's got to go.
Yes. I think that, what do you think? What do you assess the prospects for Susan Collins, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, I think the prospects for her are very good, because right now, the front runner to replace Platner, and I'm forgetting her name, but she is a gay activist who is a YouTube star, not kidding, who is a YouTube star singing, who sings gay positive children's songs.
Check, please.
Yeah.
Check, please. There you go. Yeah.
I think
and then
Susan
we have
Collins
Tellerico in Texas.
I think Susan Collins' seat may be safe.
I think it is, and I don't think the Dems are going to flip the Senate. I really don't. I think Tellerico, the guy's a freak. He's a nut.
Well, honestly, I didn't think they were going to flip the Senate regardless of Platner.
Okay.
I think it's so close, but the way things are looking, I mean, especially when you take a look, all any Republican needs to do at this point, outside of the deep blue bubble, is go, here's their track record. They want to do this to you. That's it. That's all they need to say.
I would agree with that. And I would also pile on just the text, the social media, the comments, the interviews from the Mamdani tribe, whatever you want to call it, and anyone who's actually sane and has an IQ above 80 would run like hell.
Absolutely. And now more and more things are coming out, particularly with Mamdani, because one of the things that he promised, free buses. And of course, as soon as he took office, he went, well, we're not going to be able to do that. And then he promised to lower the rents. And New York City rents just hit their highest point in history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but isn't he? Sorry, go ahead.
He promised to open grocery stores that would just carry the bare minimums, the absolute essentials, and undercut markets. Well, now it's turning out that his team was doing research by going to bodegas, asking bodega owners what their best-selling items are so that they could put small businesses out of business.
It's someone who's been around this world for a fair amount of time. I could never imagine this happening. And it's also the modus operandi, as we talked about last week, is all the same. Overeducated, second generation immigrants, usually Muslim, who have done jack shit with their lives. Mamdani's never had an effing job. He's an idiot.
No, he's never had a real job. But, and I think this may be a light at the end of the tunnel, you're seeing more and more people. Actually, it amazed me. I'm seeing more and more professors talking about this who, let's face it, the educational system is what indoctrinated these people.
Yes, it did.
But they are now coming out and going, well, wait a minute. This is identical to Germany in the 1930s.
You think?
Yeah, it's like, no kidding. We've been saying this for a while, but now more and more people are going, wait a minute, that's actually true. We can't.
So again, Frankenstein is coming home to Dr. Frankenstein, isn't it?
Yes.
Kind of amazing. Speaking of Mamdani, I think you brought this up. First of all, he's talking about how he balanced the budget. He actually had to borrow $5 billion from Albany. But anyway, I think you mentioned about this shit continues. Stock market, Wall Street could move to Texas. Guess what's there's just is starting already in Texas. Yes, it is.
Oh yeah. Well,
I think it opens in 2 days.
Both NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange have operations in Texas already. And you're starting to see some major moves, not just in New York City. I mean, yes, we've been seeing folks fleeing the city. We've been seeing folks flee California. Now it's actually getting to the point. Study just came out that over the past several years, now this goes back before Mamdani, it goes back to and I'm blanking on the idiot's name.
Adams.
No.
Adams?
The guy before Adams.
Bloomberg.
No, after Bloomberg.
After Bloomberg was that communist idiot. I forgot his name.
I'm blanking on his name, but
how can you not?
Yeah. Going back to his administration, New York City has lost $11 billion in net worth from millionaires and billionaires leaving.
Yeah, I think it's going to accelerate. We talk about Connecticut and all that kind of stuff.
It is accelerating.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a business person, you'd have to literally be on acid to move to New York, and for that matter, Connecticut as well.
Yeah, there's
are you out of your mind?
There's no reason to move to these places if you're a business. And now we're seeing Silicon Valley companies leaving California. We had seen it bit by bit. Now it's speeding up. And now the biggest one that may actually cripple the Los Angeles area, Paramount, who is about to buy Warner Brothers, despite the fact that the attorney generals of California, Connecticut, New York, and 9 other states are trying to stop it. I don't think they've got a shot in hell of doing it.
No way.
But Paramount is looking at moving out of California, which means Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers, Discovery will all leave California. They are estimating that the loss to the Los Angeles area will be in excess of $30 billion. This is a state and a city that can't balance their budget anyway.
Oh, no. And I think we can put the kibosh on Newsom being president. I think it's Polymark. He's just plummeted. You look at the investigation. I think he's goodbye.
Yeah, it was hysterical. Newsom came out with a statement that he's being investigated because he's a threat, because he's running for president and Trump doesn't want him to run. Except if you actually look at the facts of the investigation, which of course Newsom didn't, The investigation was started by the Biden administration. And it started because of people in Newsom's own administration blowing the whistle on him.
Yeah, he's a sociopath. Adam Carolla said that, not me. Well, I'm reiterating, but he can look right in the camera and say it's Trump. No, it was Biden. Probably Kamala wanted to screw him, but anyway, not literally.
That's actually probably true. Let's face it. Kamala still thinks she's running for president and thinks she can win in 2028. So she views Newsom as a much bigger threat than Trump ever thought of him as.
100%. And speaking of Kamala, she continues to do her word salad, and she is obviously, I mean, in my humble opinion, the dumbest. She makes Dan Quayle look like Einstein. She's now cozying up to Mamdani and the anti-Semitic nutcases. How dumb can you be? So she's so dumb, she doesn't know it's a temporary glitch or whatever you want to call it, and she's now saddling up, and she thinks she's going to be able to go to the center. What a stupid idiot.
Well, no, nobody who is saddling up to Mamdani is ever going to be able to move to the center. That's just ridiculous.
Good.
It's not just a matter of stupidity. We've talked about this going on 15 years now. These folks are so indoctrinated into their own echo chambers that they're cozying up to these people because all the folks around them are championing them. They're going, this is great, except why don't you go talk to some folks in Texas, in Tennessee, in Kentucky, in the heartland of the country? None of those folks are going to vote for anybody who's working like Mamdani. They weren't, not only aren't they going to vote for Kamala, they already didn't vote for Kamala.
Yeah, it's 100%. And you make up a very good point. One that, needs to be a little more clarified, because you're 100% correct. And that is, the Frankenstein laboratory is creating these monsters in deep, deep blue areas. Like he had said, like Pelosi said, you could elect a coffee cup. But when it's ready for prime time, this balloon is going to crash and burn.
And remember, there are Democrats, hardcore, involved in the system Democrats, who know this to be true. This is why in 2016, they rigged their primaries against Bernie Sanders, because they knew Sanders could not take the presidency. It's why they did it again in 2020. 2024, they lost the narrative and they went, well, Biden pulled out. They thought they were going to be able to rig it for Biden again. There was no amount of rigging that could have helped it, for Kamala, especially when Kamala's two biggest supporters were the ones that did her in. And I'm talking about the women on The View, when Sunny asked her the question, what would you do differently? And she couldn't, I can't think of anything. And Sunny actually gave her another chance. And she went, no, I would do everything the same. And the looks on their faces, particularly Sunny Hostin, was like, oh my God. And then, of course, Oprah Winfrey, who Harris actually paid to interview her. And the look on Oprah Winfrey's face when Kamala Harris was answering questions shot her down completely, because everybody saw the look where Oprah went, oh my God, she really is as stupid as they've been saying.
100%. Oh, that was excellent. And I think Holston, basically, that was Kamala's Dan Quayle moment. It was just goodbye. So the last of these clowns, the Platner supporting clowns, we have Roe Conta. And after doing some more research, his nickname is the P.T. Barnum of politics. And
I can see that.
Yeah, he's so full of shit. And he plays his typical socialist communist. He married into like almost $1 billion. Do you know he has a 3-story house with an elevator? Talk about a global footprint. And his kids have assets given to them or in their name, obviously for tax reasons. The guy's a total phony. He goes to Israel unannounced, and I think it was who's the ambassador again to
Mike
Israel?
Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee, sorry about that. So he goes to Israel on an obvious stunt, trying to embarrass the Israelis and to take the heat off his not only support for Platner, but his active campaigning and fundraising for him. The guy's a effing clown. He's got 0 point. He might have, does he have less of a chance than Murphy, the boy genius?
I don't know about that. I think it's going to be tough to have less of a chance than Murphy.
You are correct. So your thoughts, Doctor? Your thoughts, Doctor?
Yeah, this was absolutely amazing. And
embarrassing.
Just in case anybody missed this story, what Kahana is claiming is that he and his delegation went to Israel. They were detained by just civilians who did not know who he was. They were held at gunpoint. The IDF was called in, and the IDF sided with the civilians and would not let him go until they proved who he was. They investigated. Now, guess what? Mike Huckabee came out and said point blank, they never told anybody they were going to Israel.
On purpose.
Right. They did not clear it with the State Department, with the ambassador. Nobody knew they were going. So, yes, they suddenly show up. Now, let's face it. I don't know if they knew who he was, but quite frankly, if they did know who he was, I think that's reason enough to detain him.
Oh, they would have been doing the American people a service.
Yes.
To do that, to detain him as long as possible.
But he has been trying to undermine Israel since he got into office. So, of course, he's going to be detained by civilians. Now he's trying to get these folks arrested, and nothing is going to happen because he was in the wrong, made up most of the story, as Mike Huckabee has now been coming out, because he claimed everything had been cleared. Everyone knew he was coming. No. They basically snuck in the middle of the night to try to get a photo op.
No
and
question.
Guess what? He got the photo op he wanted, and now it's blowing up in his face.
Oh, blowing up to your point, Doctor. He was on CNN, and he got his ass handed to him on CNN. On CNN.
That actually doesn't surprise me, because CNN has been moving more and more to the center over the past, I'd say, 8 months. They know that the Paramount merger is going to go through, and they know that Barry Weiss is most likely going to be in charge of CNN. So they don't want to get fired. And Trump has now agreed to start going on CNN because
that's
of
going to be
this shift. So
yeah,
it doesn't surprise me that they're not letting this stuff, get away anymore. And on top of that, you take a look at how quickly MS Now is deteriorating. CNN goes, wait a minute, we go back to the center. We can at least take second spot in the news game again.
At least. And I think to your MS Now, I think, basically, if anyone watching that basically has no functioning brain. And not just because I'm biased, it is unwatchable.
No, the best description I heard somebody say, I don't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was one of the liberal pundits. They actually said watching MS Now is like watching a cancer patient who knows he's not going to make it.
That's perfect, Doctor.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, the doctor was once again correct when we were talking about the ceasefire. You were diametrically opposed to the ceasefire in Iran. So things are heating up again. Your thoughts? I think it's good. I do. No, let me just be clear. I was in favor of the blockade of the ceasefire because I thought it gave us time to rebuild some stock, as well as give the opportunity for Iran to get their shit together and I think actually in the end, I have no problem with what I believed, but in the end, it was doomed to fail, wasn't it, Lopkin? And tell me what you think will transpire.
Yeah, it was doomed to fail. I think two very good things actually did come from the ceasefire. One is that Trump has now seen, as has the world, that anything the Iranian government agrees to, they're going to violate almost immediately, because that's what's been going on. They agreed to the ceasefire, they agreed to the terms, they immediately tried to close the Strait of Hormuz. They were attacking their neighbors, they were attacking commercial vessels. Everything they agreed to, they fell through almost immediately. So basically, everybody now saw who the Iranian government was. The other good thing that actually came about was because of the ceasefire and the fact that we were able to open up the Strait of Hormuz. And quite frankly, we're pretty much keeping it open now, despite what Iran is saying. Oil prices started to come down. When oil prices came down, you suddenly saw inflation start to drop, because that was what was propping it up. So now, when the oil problem went away, now obviously it's going to come back short term until we actually just blow them to kingdom come. But now the Democrats have lost their talking point that the economy is in such bad shape. It's like, no,
affordability. No, let me interject. You're 100% correct.
Yes.
Yeah, affordability. But it was a bullshit thing anyway. They're the ones who created the. So they got nothing. They got nothing, as the Italians would say in New York City. Correct?
Exactly. So they lost the idea that they were championing affordability, because now you saw prices start dropping. Not only did the consumer price index drop, which is the inflation rate that we're all paying, but earlier today, they also announced the producer price index dropped. This is the wholesale price index. Now, that drop generally doesn't show up in the consumer prices for about a month or so, which means there's a very good chance that despite what's going on in Iran, we might get another month of dropping inflation before it starts coming back up.
Yes, and I think to close off the discussion on Iran, the conflict in Iran, I think the ceasefire was also good because it kind of, like you were talking about, it allowed Trump to see the Iranians for who they really were. I think he hoped against hoped or whatever about a deal. And now I think, in a good way, in your comment, I think he's going to go full bore in kicking their ass. Therefore, it will end sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that seems to be what Trump is gearing up for right now. We've just had 3 days of bombing them. We had a massive strike on Iran this morning, which is rare, because if you take a look at all of the strikes, they've all been at night. And this was a daytime strike, so he's not messing around. He wants this done with. And this is what I think he should have done in the first place, so he could have wiped the whole thing out in the 60 days before needing the ceasefire.
Yeah, I would agree. Finally, you know how much of a Stones fan I am, and I think it's really funny. Mick Jagger had an interview with someone and basically told Bruce Springsteen to shut the hell up. Wasn't it great?
It was amazing. Mick Jagger came out saying, look, people are going to concerts to have a good time, not to get a political lecture. And this is something that entertainers need to understand. Nobody cares what their opinion is. We saw that in 2024 when they all came out for Kamala and the country went, oh, hell no.
Yeah, and the other thing what I really think is funny, Bruce, who I used to like in college, it's a long time ago, and that goes into the whole, okay, dude, you're completely irrelevant, okay, stop it. Anyway, it's like Bono, Bruce, yeah, they're beneficiaries of no education. I mean, I'm not talking college, They're high school dropouts, and they're lecturing the world in America about geopolitics. To shut up, get your guitar, and start playing to a bunch of overaged boomers who are trying to relive the glory days. And guess what? Hate to break it to them, it's over, dude.
Yeah, and this is something that's going on in Hollywood. We've seen a number of movies over the last year or so completely fail at the box office that Hollywood was counting on as big box office successes because A, they went overboard on DEI, B, the entertainers involved couldn't keep their mouths shut and alienated their audiences.
Idiots.
Yeah, you're there to entertain people. Read your lines, shut the hell up when you get off camera, and go away.
You know what I find hysterical in closing? Yeah, the super girl, I don't know anything about it. It completely bombed, and the star, I don't know who she is, blames the audience. I love that.
Well, that's actually typical. I don't remember the name of the actress that played Snow White, but she was a pro-Palestinian activist.
She's a nut job.
She also did the same thing. We've seen this over and over again where they're coming out with movies that are basically aimed at an LGBTQ audience. And before the movie even comes out, the producers, the directors, the writers are all saying, well, this isn't meant for you. And then they get all upset when the folks it's not meant for don't come to see it.
I think it's excellent. And last, in closing, I think it's funny because obviously it extends itself into the corporate world, probably because of Harvard MBAs and so on and so forth. But I love Jaguar. Anyone with a brain would know it's elegance, it's history, it's British design. I'm telling you what it means as a brand. So yes. What does the idiots do? Have an LBGQ, whatever. It lasted like a day, and the company's never recovered. Hello.
No, well, again, Bud Light still hasn't fully recovered from its foray. Target, not only didn't it recover from going full woke, but now they're getting backlash from the LGBTQ and woke communities for backing off of it. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
They may never recover. And really funny, I think it's funny because you're a top business consultant, communications consultant, and just from my own business experience, you can F up kind of like it's a promotion you didn't exactly kick ass, but the woman that designed the Bud Light, I don't think she's hireable. She's hireable. How do you explain that in an interview?
These things have been so majorly mishandled, and I mean, let's face it. You can have the worst possible thing happen to your brand and still recover. Yes. And I use as an example, going back to the 80s, Tylenol. When Johnson & Johnson still owned it, it's changed hands a couple of times since then. But when somebody took Tylenol off the shelves, put cyanide in the capsules, and people died. Tylenol and Johnson & Johnson responded correctly. They didn't worry about what it was going to cost them. They immediately pulled everything off the shelves, even in areas that there was no indication that there was tampering. They didn't want to take any chances, pulled everything off the shelves, changed the packaging so that it was completely tamper-proof, got rid of the capsules, and in fact, most major pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter pharmaceutical companies followed suit. So it's only in the past couple of years you've started to see capsules even come back, and they've been fine. They were able to take the worst possible thing, somebody dying from your product, and rebound. So
I agree, but there's one big distinction. Their threat came from the outside.
Yes.
I think Americans are cool with underdogs and so on and so forth. But if you F your own self up, then good riddance.
See, but even if you F yourself up, if you come out immediately when you see what has happened and you say, all right, you know what? We screwed up. We shouldn't have done this. We apologize. Go back to courting your core consumers. You can still, recover. The
Agreed, yes.
problem is not so much the mistake they made, but the fact that they refuse to acknowledge that it was a mistake.
You know something, you that's why you are the doctor. Just like in personal situations, you do something, I don't know, you acted up at a party. I'm just making it up. So yeah, if you apologize, you say, whatever, people appreciate that, correct?
That's
A
it.
little
You
humility.
You take responsibility, you hold yourself accountable, and you make changes so that you don't do it again. That's really the key. These guys did not admit they made a mistake, did not see anything wrong with it, refused to make changes so that they wouldn't do it again, and they're suffering the consequences.
Oh, well, as they say, let the door hit you on the ass. Well, Dr. Lopkin, another great show, and our listeners, a lot of stuff going in on the news. They can interject what they would want us to cover or talk about, or maybe things that they don't want us to talk about so much. And they can be part of the show, can't they, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, let us know what you want to hear us go into. What do you want us to analyze? What don't you want us to analyze? And what issues are most important to you? You can go to xvadio.com/connect. Messages there. You can also send us a message through the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music. And don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there. And of course,
and we have
we're available on every platform that respects freedom of speech.
And Dr. Lopkin, I think you would agree, we have an open invitation for Chris Murphy anytime he wants to come on the show.
Yes, and not just Chris Murphy. We are wide open. Anybody from any party, they want to get their voice out there, let us know. We are happy to have you on.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I will see you next week.
We'll see you then.